Hi, I'm John Ray, and welcome to the Thriving Podcast. I'm your host and intuitive coach, dedicated to amplifying your intuition, transforming your mind, and igniting your inner magic to create a life you're obsessed with. 2 years ago, I was burnt out as fuck in a toxic relationship and a successful tech career that I just wasn't happy in anymore. I left it all behind with no plan, and now I'm running my own business, immersed in purpose and passion, happily married to my soulmate, and living out my dreams every single day. And if you're badass enough to be listening to this podcast, then you're already on the fast track to doing the same, babe. On this podcast, we'll dive into all things life, business, heart, mind, body, and soul, empowering you to up-level your life and embody your happiest, healthiest, and hottest self. It's time to make idealistic your new realistic, because you're not just here to survive, you're here to thrive. Hello, hello, hello. Happy Thriving Thursday. Welcome back to the podcast. You guys, I know I'm so sorry that you did not get an episode last week. Honestly, lots of updates. Basically, I had some more clarity around the podcast, right? You guys have been following my journey along very closely. And I realized that last week, while I thought that the clarity about the podcast being in maintenance mode was the endpoint, like I was like clear, good to go with that, I think it was just a stepping stone to me actually realizing that we got to take a pause. And it is indeed a pause. It is not like an indefinite pause. It is not even a hiatus. It's a very intentional pause. And I think that is what I was missing before. And it makes perfect sense now that I've made the decision. Of course, obviously, that's how you like always know that it's the right one. Like that it's what you've been not realizing, not seeing, dancing around. And because I've been saying, right? Like I have this vision for the podcast. I know what I want it to become. I know what feels off now. And I'm just in this like in-between phase. And for some reason, I think I felt like I just had to keep going in the in-between phase. I don't know if it was like a fear of losing momentum or, you know, maybe I felt like I was like failing in some way or giving up on it by pausing. And it was like, I felt like it wasn't intentional. And when I realized, okay, wait a minute, why am I just keeping this going for the sake of keeping it going? Like if I'm planning to do this whole rebrand and have this whole vision, like it makes sense to pause, you know? And like, I'm thinking of this as like season 1. And we're going to end season 1 and we're going to come back with season 2 and align all of the changes with season 2, which makes so much more sense. It would actually be weird if I was like, okay, change is coming. And then like, bam, all of a sudden, like it's all new. Like this feels so much better energetically to me, even strategically. And also like it will give me the time and space to really make sure that I'm putting the proper time and energy and attention into the rebrand, into preparing for season 2, into making the podcast what I want it to be and bringing that vision to life in a way that feels really aligned and make sure that I'm able to full send it and not half-ass it, you know? And I really want to be open with you guys about like the whole thing. And I'm glad that I've been open throughout the process of you seeing me like question like, oh, the podcast is feeling weird and having breakthroughs around it. And then like thinking this was the decision and then changing my mind. And like, I'm glad you've got to see that because this is like a real behind the scenes of like what it's like to run a business and like all the time you're having those kind of things, right? And you don't always get the clarity right away, right? And a lot of the time it's like, oh, I had a little piece of clarity, right? Like you saw, I was like, oh, I realized that this is why. It's because I want to do episodes more this way. And I actually want to do this. And now I'm clear on the vision, but now I'm not sure how to handle the transition. Now I think I'm clear on how to handle the transition. Actually, no, this is how I want to handle it, right? So I love that you got to see that. And yeah, so last week, I think, and I'll tell you like a couple other like things that really like showed me, oh yeah, like this is definitely what I want to do because I was on a call with a client last week or 2 weeks ago, I don't remember. And I was talking to her about embodying your message, right? Which obviously I talk about all the time. And I was giving her an example and I was like, you know, for example, like I talk all the time about if something feels like a chore in your business, then, you know, drop it or figure out what you have to change so it doesn't feel like a chore. Like, don't just keep things in your business that don't feel like a full body yes. And so if I was keeping something in my business that felt that way, like I wouldn't be fully embodying my message. And right as I said that to her, the podcast popped into my head. And it's not even like, obviously I knew there was stuff feeling off with it, but like you guys know, as I've been like updating, like I thought that I had addressed it, you know, and I had figured out what fell off and brought it back into alignment. But the fact that it popped into my head when I said that, I was like, oh shoot, that clearly means that I do feel that way. Like it doesn't feel fully aligned and I'm not embodying my message and setting a good example for my clients by continuing to keep this up. And that was how I knew like, okay, it's time to take a pause. And I reflected on it and I was like, this actually feels so good when I just gave myself permission, right? Which I also talk about all the time. When I just gave myself permission to be like, okay, I'm going to pause it and come back with this renewed clarity and energy. And yeah, I think for some reason I just felt like, yeah, like I wanted to keep it. It was almost like I was trying to hold on and just like shape it into what I wanted. And again, it's not like I'm letting it go. Like I'm literally just like taking a pause for like a month and a half. But it was like, you know, sometimes there's just really something to be said for an energetic, fresh start. I don't think that it's always required. I don't think that it's ever required, but I do think that sometimes it can be a very powerful choice that you can make because some of the realizations that I had was like, you know, when I started this podcast almost a year ago, my business was completely different, you know, like I was almost a year ago in my business. So at the time I was only like a year into my business, right? And I hadn't even niched to the niche I'm in now. Like I wasn't even working with entrepreneurs. I wasn't a business coach. I don't even know. I think I was like general manifestation still back in May, or I had just started to like dip my toes into business coaching, I think, and working with entrepreneurs. I think I was still kind of like, okay, I'm working with entrepreneurs, but I'm not like a business coach. I'm just like, help, you know what I mean? I was like starting to build like the confidence to really commit to it. And yeah, just starting to dip my toes into that. So I think with me starting the podcast and that energy and then like my business evolving so much and like so quickly and like my brand evolving and me getting so much more clarity with my business and my brand throughout that time, it was almost like the podcast was like growing with me and it was like very reflective of like the growth I was going through, which is very cool. Like it's a very cool like record of that. And all the episodes I've put out so far, by the way, like are fire. Like I love and I'm very proud of all the episodes that I've put out over this past year. It's not like I think they're like crappy episodes or anything, but I think it's just like it feels like tied to this old energy, like this old outdated energy. And also as I started to transition and get more clear on my brand and my business and like really what I'm doing, and I'm very, very clear and committed to that now, I felt like kind of this 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of thing of like, how much do I talk about business on the podcast now? And I really felt a constant kind of like inner conflict with that of, okay, like if I do an episode that's like specifically about business or business strategy or only talking to entrepreneurs, are like the people who listen to my podcast that aren't interested in that like gonna drop off and, you know, all of that. And then also wanting to like, you know, feel like I could talk about anything, but, you know, then I would feel like, oh, now that I'm doing business, I feel like all my episodes should relate to my offer, you know, and I just started to get into my head about it. And I think it was because I didn't have that clear vision. And so it was like, how do I say it? Because it was already alive, then it made it harder to see the vision apart from it. You know what I mean? You know, like obviously I would always say to a client in this position, you know, like you can do whatever the fuck you want. Like there are no rules, which I knew that. But, you know, obviously you guys understand like like when you're in it, of course you have blind spots. And it's also just like kind of that thing where like, you know, but you also feel confused, or like, you know, that you're not really confused, but you still feel like you're confused, like that kind of thing. And I think I was just like battling with what I really wanted to do with it. And I think also because like I didn't necessarily have the clarity and conviction that I do have in my business and my brand now, like throughout most of that, that's why it felt messy, right? Like that's why where I am at standing now, I can clearly see what I want to do and how I want to move forward, because I feel that way with like every aspect of myself, like my business and my brand, right? Whereas before it was like, it was still evolving. So I still wasn't sure, you know, like I felt a lot of hesitation, honestly, to really claim my role as a business coach for a while because I had a ton of imposter syndrome around it, right? I'm new in my business. I've only made this much money, blah, blah, blah. But I'm really at the point now where I'm like, I'm fucking good at this. Is clearly what I meant to do. And I have no qualms about it anymore. And so I feel like I needed to reach that level of conviction in order to kind of feel at peace with like the direction I want the podcast to go. and to be clear, so I haven't like shared the vision with you fully. And I'm not going to like tell you everything because I want, you know, I want to like, I feel like I want to introduce it, all in an exciting way when I do the relaunch, which I'm planning to time with the 1 year anniversary, which would be late May. So yeah, our break between season 1 and season 2 is only going to be like about a month and a half. So it's not going to be long. It'll fly by. Go back and re-listen to your favorite episodes while I'm gone. But I know I've mentioned this in previous episodes. I want to make the podcast more conversational. I realized that a big like thing that was coming up for me, like a big block, was I felt like I didn't know what to talk about anymore. And I realized that I wanted the podcast to be more conversational, but it was like, obviously it's harder to do that when it's just you, right? And I loved the bestie chat, like life updates. And I was like, I want every episode to be like this, but it was like, okay, well, I don't necessarily have like bestie chat life update stuff like every week, like I would update you on the whole like past month when I would do those. So, and then I had that breakthrough where I was like, oh, duh, it's because it's just me. Like, it would be so easy to be conversational if I had other people on. And I think that will help a lot too with just like, I don't know, I have such a better like vision of my brand. And I don't even know if I know how to articulate it, but it's like, I know the topics that I like want to talk about, and I feel like it's just going to be like a much more well-rounded podcast. And honestly, it might not feel different to you in terms of the topics because I'm going to talk about a lot of the same stuff. But I think before I was just viewing it in my head as like, okay, manifestation, general spirituality, and like personal growth, or business, or entrepreneurship. And now it's really just going to be like all. So like not every episode may super resonate for every person, but overall it's all going to be of interest to you guys. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it's going to be more of just generally my values and my interests. Like I want to have guests that cover a wide range of areas all within this umbrella, right? So we'll talk about spirituality, energetics, intuition, holistic health, things that like I feel are like relevant and like interesting, but I probably wouldn't do a solo episode on it necessarily, like educating on it because I'm not necessarily like the expert, but I could have someone who's an expert in like holistic health or nutrition or something on, and we could have a conversation. So it's like, I want to bring more value in that way to where like you're getting that expanded perspective on topics that all relate and like interesting conversations. Like that was another big shift was like, I felt like the podcast was like very educational, informational, or I was looking at it that way. And that's why I ran out of topics because first of all, I was too vague because I was scared to like get more specific, right? Because I was like, which direction do I get more specific in? And so then you run out of topics. And then secondly, it's like there at a certain point, there's like only so much knowledge you can give, right? And I realized that's really not why I started the podcast. I started the podcast, like, yes, to share knowledge and insight, but really because I love to talk, right? I love to have conversations and like that's the fun part. And it's a very different energy to just be giving information, education on things, tips and whatever than just talking and having expansive, activating conversations about those topics, because they can go in so many different directions then. So my goal and my vision is we're going to have a lot more guests. And it's going to be a lot more exciting conversations. I'm going to get really badass people on the podcast. I'm going to be very intentional about making sure that I bring on people who are exciting, interesting, really fun to talk to, have so much fun, wisdom, and magic to share in many different areas. And I want to make the conversations exciting. It's funny because I've been told multiple times before I even had a podcast, honestly, before I even was like doing my business, that like I'm really good at interviewing and like I should do this for a living. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what would that even look like? And I'm like, now, oh my God, like this is what they meant, And I feel like I listen to so many podcasts where I'm like, you suck at interviewing or that was boring. I don't like when they just like ask questions and don't actually have a conversation. So I just feel like I'm going to be really good at, not to toot my own horn, but I'm tooting. I feel like I'm going to be really good at striking a balance of like making it exciting, not just asking the basic questions, like really, yeah, like I want just expansive, juicy conversations on life, spirituality, entrepreneurship, business, health, all of it. And yeah, like I don't want any topic to be off limits. Obviously, there's still going to be like a heavy focus on entrepreneurship, on manifestation energetics, like health, personal growth, everything that obviously like we talk about and that I am all about, self-expression and creativity, all of it. But I really, I don't want any topic to be off limits because I feel like they all do relate in a way. And my intention is really my focus is going to be a lot more on like, who am I bringing on and what energy am I bringing into it? So I'm really, really excited for that. That is kind of like my vision. And I do still want to incorporate, like education and tips in some way. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do this. So I don't want to like commit to something right now and tell you guys and then change my mind. So we will have that, like the vision will be fully fleshed out when we come back with season 2. I want to do something to still, because we are going to be rebranding, renaming. And I want to do something to still kind of nod to the Thriving fam, because you guys have been with me through this entire first year and I love you so much. And yeah, you've been super loyal and have really supported me growing the podcast to where it is right now and are going to help me bring the momentum into season 2 and the new vision and the rebrand. So I'm still figuring out the kinks, working out the kinks, but that's kind of my vision. I'm thinking maybe there might be like a second mini episode where we do like, tips or more actionable, informational, but it's like a shorter thing. Maybe. I'm going to see how I'm feeling or like, how I flesh out when I really buckle down to, again, flesh this all out and really start like getting things together for the rebrand to go live in March for season 2. And then that way too, I can still work in those solo episodes, but that way when I do the solo episode, I won't feel like so burnt out on solo episodes and I'll have so much to say. You know what I mean? Like right now, I feel like I have so much to say because I haven't recorded in a few weeks and I noticed that would keep happening. So it was like, I think I just had to realize and give myself permission of like, oh, like the reason I'm not feeling motivated is just because like I'm recording too much of the same thing. I'm losing inspiration, And this way I feel like that won't happen. So I'm really, really excited about the vision for the podcast. And so last week, I literally put off recording until the last like possible minute. And because I had that idea where I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to tell that story for my 30th birthday. It'll be so perfect. And then I got to like the day I was supposed to record and I was like, oh my God, I do not feel like telling that story. Like I already talked about it a little last week. Like I'm so like bored on it. Like I don't feel like going back into it. I feel like it won't be interesting. And I just like, and that was like what a giveaway, the other giveaway, where I was like, okay, you know what? Clearly like I need to pause because this, like I would not be putting it off this way if, the energy was where I would want it to be for something that I'm continuing to put my energy into, And I was like, it's just draining my energy more than it's filling it at this point. And it's like not good for anyone. Because it's going to come through in the episodes too. Like you guys will feel that. So I was like putting off. And honestly, last week was just so crazy, like busy, exhausting because like more than I realized. I just didn't realize, again, like I feel like I'm so good at like finding balance in my schedule now and like maintaining balance and not like overdoing it. But where I sometimes still miss it and like slip up is when it's all good things. And then I don't realize like, oh, even though it was all good things, like that was still a lot and like I'm exhausted. So like 2 weeks ago it was, like Sindri came. And so like we had a lot going on. There's a busy weekend. It was my birthday week. So I had like multiple birthday celebrations and I was onboarding like 3 new clients at once. So it was like a lot. And by the end of the week, like by the day I was supposed to record, I was like, wait a minute, I'm exhausted. And I was like, oh wait, yeah, like that makes sense. And I was like, oh, but I should put an episode out. And I was like, you know what? Like the episode was just going to be to say this. And so I was like, if they have to wait a week, they could have a little bit of mystery. Like they're going to find out next week anyway that we're taking a pause. So it's like, it's not that big of a deal. I'm going to just honor my energy and take a break. So that's why you didn't get an episode last week. I wish there was a way that I could just like give an update, like to the podcast feed that's not an episode. Because I felt like, and I probably could have done it in an easier way, but it's like I wanted to just put an update out that's like, no episode this week, see you next week, at least so like, but there's no way to do that. And I'm not going to put out a whole episode to just be like, no episode, like that's, it doesn't make sense, So like, I wish there was a way I could do that because I was like, well, I wish I could just let them know. Obviously I have Instagram, but not all of you are. Follow me on Instagram. So if you don't, definitely do that. I highly recommend because you'll get all the updates on everything that's going on. Also, like you just get to follow my life and everything more. And I post awesome stuff there. But you will also get to, get the deets on the rebrand and when everything is happening. Of course, just make sure that you hit follow or subscribe on the podcast feed. So that way, even if you don't follow me on Instagram, if you don't have social media, or you like just don't go on, then you'll still make sure that you get updates when I do come out with the first new episode of season 2. Yeah, I have an email list that you could join. I honestly don't send emails to it very often. That's like a possible 2025 goal, but to be honest, it's not high on the list yet. So we'll see about that. But the best way to make sure that you stay in the know is follow me on Instagram. Leave a comment on this episode as well if you want to get on my email list. If you want to make sure that you're in the know somehow, some way, somehow, if you're not on social media, you can leave a comment on here and I can reach out to you or add you. Or, like I said, make sure that you are just following or subscribed to the podcast itself so you get updates. And yeah, that's pretty much the update on that. I think that's, everything that I really wanted to say and make sure you guys know. I also did have an amazing birthday, by the way. It was awesome. Like, literally 30 is so good. I'm like, could not feel more 30 and thriving. Like, literally could not feel more 30 and thriving if I tried. It's really, really good. All good stuff. So I'm really excited for this. Thank you guys for being with me on this journey. This little gap is going to fly by and we are going to come back with so much activated energy. With such a better energy, such a good vibe, like so much exciting stuff. I'm really, really excited for the next level of this podcast. And I think that's all I have. So love you so much. As always, feel free to send me any questions or any thoughts or anything at all. Keep in touch on Instagram. And I will talk to you guys so soon. All right. Have a great rest of your day or night wherever you are. I forgot about what is my outro again? I'm like, I will talk to you soon. Wait, that's the last thing I say. Have a great rest of your day or night wherever you are. Thank you so much for listening. And I won't talk to you next week, but I will talk to you in about a month and a half. So keep your eyes peeled, keep your ears open, and I can't wait to talk to you guys. Mwah, love you.